The treaty chamber gleamed under 3 suns, casting long shadows across polished stone. Ambassador Lyria of the Velcrin Dominion stood before the human delegation, her violet skin pale with exhaustion. 5 cycles of war had reduced both civilizations to ash and desperation. "We propose a union," the human ambassador said. His name was Marcus Kane, and his eyes held the weariness of 10,000 funerals. "A marriage between our peoples." Lyria's throat tightened. She knew what they asked. She was the emperor's niece, 3rd in line to the crystal throne. Her betrothal would bind the treaty in blood and tradition. "And who would you offer?" she asked, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "My son, David Kane." The young man stepped forward. He was unremarkable by human standards. Brown hair, average height, quiet eyes that seemed to calculate everything they touched. He bowed with perfect Velcrin etiquette, which surprised her. "I accept," Lyria said, because the alternative was extinction. The wedding occurred beneath the Harmony Arch, on neutral ground. David spoke his vows in flawless Velcrin. His hand was warm when it clasped hers, and when he smiled, she saw something beneath the careful diplomat's mask. Something dangerous. They returned to Velcro's prime as husband and wife. The war ceased. Fleets withdrew. Reconstruction began. Lyria learned her husband slowly, carefully. He was brilliant with languages, mastering Velcrin dialects in weeks. He studied their military history with obsessive focus, reading battlefield reports from the war until his eyes ached. He exercised each morning with movements that flowed like water, becoming stone. "Why do you train?" she asked one dawn, watching him move through forms she didn't recognize. "Because peace is maintained by those ready for war," he replied, not breaking rhythm. She didn't understand. Humans confused her. They spoke of peace while their eyes tracked exits. They laughed at dinner while their hands never strayed far from weapons. David was kind to her, gentle even, but she sometimes caught him staring at the stars with an expression that made her blood cold. The peace lasted 1 solar cycle. The Kryn swarm arrived without warning, as they always did. They were the galaxy's plague, insectoid, numberless, consuming everything. They had destroyed 6 civilizations in living memory. The warning came at midnight. Lyria woke to sirens, and David already dressed, checking equipment she'd never seen him carry. "Stay in the bunker," he said, kissing her forehead. "I'll return." "You're a diplomat, not a soldier," she protested. His smile was sad. "I'm whatever I need to be." He left before she could stop him. The Kryn came in waves. Millions of chittering forms dropped from orbit, overwhelming the capital's defenses in hours. Velcrin warriors fought with honor and skill, but honor meant nothing against infinite numbers. The defense lines collapsed. Citizens fled. The palace guard made their final stand in the throne room, knowing they would die. Lyria huddled in the bunker with the imperial family, listening to the screams above grow closer. Her uncle the emperor wept quietly, prayers falling from his lips like rain. Then the screaming changed. The Kryn began shrieking in agony. Lyria activated the external monitors against protocol. What she saw made her doubt her sanity. David moved through the swarm like a natural disaster given form. He carried 2 blades that hummed with technology she couldn't identify. Kryn warriors lunged at him from all directions, and he simply wasn't there when they arrived. His movements were impossible. Too fast, too precise, too efficient. He didn't fight like Velcrin warriors with their graceful forms. He didn't fight like Kryn with their savage efficiency. He fought like every motion had been calculated to end life with minimal effort. A Kryn broodlord, 3 times his size, charged with mandibles spread. David slid under its attack, blades singing through its legs. The creature collapsed, and he was already gone, cutting through the next wave. His face held no rage, no fear, no joy. Just absolute focus. "What is he?" whispered the Emperor. Lyria had no answer. The battle raged for 6 hours. David didn't slow. Bodies piled around him until he stood on a hill of corpses, and still the Kryn came. He adapted to their patterns, predicted their movements, turned their numbers into a disadvantage. When they tried to swarm him, he used their own mass against them, making them crush each other. When they tried to keep distance, he closed gaps with speed that seemed to bend physics. The Velkryn forces rallied behind him, pushing forward with renewed hope. But they could see what Lyria saw. They weren't fighting alongside David. They were watching something beyond their understanding. By dawn, the Kryn withdrew. Their losses were unsustainable. They retreated to orbit, regrouped, and prepared a larger assault. David returned to the palace covered in blue Kryn blood. He walked past cheering soldiers with the same quiet expression he wore at breakfast. He found Lyria in the bunker and knelt before her, checking her for injuries with gentle hands. "I'm fine," she whispered. "David, what are you?" "Your husband," he said simply. The Kryn returned with 10 times their original force. They blackened the sky with their drop pods. The Velkryn military prepared for extinction. David requested command of the defense. The generals laughed until the Emperor commanded silence. "Give him what he asks," Lyria said, her voice carrying authority she didn't know she possessed. They gave him access to the military network. He studied it for 20 minutes, then began issuing orders. His commands made no tactical sense. He divided their forces strangely, positioned artillery in seemingly useless locations, and left entire sections of the city apparently undefended. The Kryn landed in predicted patterns. They rushed toward the undefended zones, and David's trap closed. The artillery positions had perfect crossfire. The divided forces crushed the swarm from angles they couldn't defend. Every element of David's strategy revealed itself as genius disguised as madness. But strategy wasn't enough. The Kryn adapted, pushing through losses that would break any normal army. Their ships began orbital bombardment, raining fire on the capital. David looked up at the burning sky and made a decision that Lyria saw in his eyes. "I need access to the old vault," he told the Emperor. "The weapons your people sealed away." The Emperor paled. "Those devices are forbidden. They nearly destroyed us during the civil wars. They'll destroy the Kryn faster. And what's to stop them from destroying everything else?" David met his eyes. "Me," the Emperor hesitated, then nodded. The old vault opened for the first time in 300 cycles. Inside lay weapons the Velkryn had deemed too terrible for civilized war. Molecular disruptors, gravity wells, things that unmade matter at the atomic level. David studied them for 5 minutes, selected 3 devices, and walked back into the firestorm. What happened next became legend. David activated the first weapon in the city's industrial sector, where Kryn forces massed. Reality bent inward, and 10,000 Kryn simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across dimensions. He used the second weapon to create a gravitational anomaly that pulled 3 Kryn dropships from orbit into the planet's core. The third weapon he carried to the Kryn command ship that had landed in the palace gardens. Lyria watched from the palace walls as her husband walked alone toward a ship the size of a mountain. Kryn warriors flooded out to meet him, thousands strong. He activated the device, and light consumed everything. When the brightness faded, the command ship was a crater. The Kryn fleet began retreating from orbit. Their swarm pulled back, confused and leaderless. The Velkryn forces pushed forward, driving them off-world entirely. David stood at the crater's edge, weapon discarded, looking more tired than Lyria had ever seen him. The war ended. The Kryn, for the first time in recorded history, fled a system without consuming it. That night, Lyria found David on their balcony, staring at his hands. She approached carefully, uncertain if she should fear him. How, she asked. How did one person do what armies couldn't? He was quiet for a long time. Humans evolved on a death world, he finally said. Everything on Earth wanted to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans. We survived by becoming the best at violence. We studied it, refined it, turned it into science and art. We're not the strongest or fastest species. We're just the ones who never stopped learning how to kill more efficiently. So you're a soldier. I was. Before diplomacy. Special operations. They sent me because they thought my skills might be useful someday. His smile was bitter. They were right. Lyria took his hand. It was still warm, still gentle. Does it frighten you? What you can do. Every day, he admitted. I chose diplomacy because I was tired of being good at death. But the galaxy keeps requiring it. The Kryn would have killed us all. I know. That's why I did it. But Lyria, you need to understand something about humans. We're very good at justifying violence. We'll always find reasons. That's our danger. She thought about the Kryn corpses, the devastated city, the fear in her people's eyes when they looked at David now. Not gratitude, not entirely. Something more complicated. What happens now? She asked. Now peace, he said. Real peace this time. Because the galaxy just learned that humans keep their treaties. And they learned what happens if you break them. Word spread. The Kryn defeat became myth, embellished with each retelling. David's actions echoed through diplomatic channels. Treaties with humanity, yes,